plane full of passengers crashed into the ocean 100 meters deep, but not a single drop of water leaked into the cabin, and the people inside were incredibly lucky to be completely unharmed. As they felt relieved and happy about this, they completely overlooked the fact that the plane was now hundreds of meters underwater. Once the oxygen inside the cabin ran out, no one would be able to survive. To make things worse, they were too far from the surface. Their communication devices couldn't pick up any signals at all. The airport control tower had no idea the plane had crashed. They could only sit in the narrow cabin and wait for death. But just then, someone noticed that water was starting to seep in through the glass. At this point it was already extremely dangerous. Everyone knew they couldn't just sit there and wait to die. The captain came up with a risky plan. He had to personally bring the signal transmitter to the surface, but at 100 meters deep, even a child would know that the pressure was unimaginably strong. Without the protection of the plane's outer shell, his internal organs would likely be crushed by the unbearable force. But right now, this was the only way to save the passengers' lives. With this last chance, the captain immediately took action. He and his assistant quickly put on their safety vests. At the same time, the crew inside sealed off the steel door connecting the cabin, completely isolating them in a small chamber. But even though the plan sounded simple, executing it was incredibly difficult. When the captain pressed the button to open the hatch, he underestimated the terrifying impact of the water pressure. In an instant, water flooded the entire cabin. His assistant was knocked out cold by the violent impact. In this critical moment, the captain stayed calm under pressure. He immediately took off his own oxygen mask and placed it over his assistant's mouth. But the next second, he realized something was wrong. The person in front of him wasn't breathing anymore. The impact of the water must have shattered his internal organs. Seeing that there was no hope of saving him, the captain made a decisive choice. He turned away and swam forward. He couldn't afford a moment of hesitation, because dozens of passengers were still waiting for him. He quickly swam to the hatch, opened the backpack containing the signal transmitter. The yellow air valve instantly inflated, sending it straight to the surface. But at this moment, the captain found himself in a desperate situation, with no way back. He had no choice but to swim upward with all his strength. Fortunately, just as he was about to lose consciousness, he managed to break free from danger. He quickly climbed onto a life raft, pressed the distress signal button, and exhausted all his energy. He could only lie there and wait for rescue. At that moment, a Navy warship that was in the middle of a training exercise unexpectedly received this unfamiliar distress signal. They immediately dispatched sailors, who took a boat to carry out the rescue. Before long, they found the exhausted captain and pulled him aboard. When they heard that there was an entire plane of people struggling to survive at the bottom of the ocean, the warship's captain knew that if this situation wasn't handled properly, the entire Navy fleet would be shamed. So he mobilized his entire crew to carry out the rescue mission. After relentless efforts, the rescue team finally located the crashed plane, but the sight in front of them left everyone in shock. They couldn't believe that the people inside were still alive. But before they could recover from their shock, they were faced with an even bigger challenge, because if they broke open the plane's outer shell, water would immediately flood the cabin, and at that point, no one inside would make it out alive.